Hi, I'm Teresa Robinson from the University of Reading in the Institute of Zoology, and I'm going to talk to you today about my work in partnership with the Mauritian Wildlife Foundation and the Natural History Museum, in which we examine the impacts of social networks on annual productivity in a wild population of this endangered bird. The Fodie is one of only 8 remaining endemic Mauritius birds, and in the 1990s there were no more than 100 breeding pairs left, and it was classified as critically endangered. As part of a species recovery plan from the Mauritian Wildlife Foundation, it was reintroduced onto Île aux Aigrettes, an islet which is partially restored and has populations of other endangered species, such as this pink pigeon, established on it. The Fodie population increased rapidly to around 500 adults, and the species has been downlisted to endangered as a result. But the situation remains precarious because functionally all of our eggs are in this one basket. Within this population, breeding occurs almost all year round. Individuals can make up to 10 nesting attempts within a season, and there are varied mating systems seen. About 15% of nests are either polygynous, where the male has multiple females, or they are overlapping nests within the same pair of birds. Previous work on this population of Fodies has demonstrated that annual reproductive success can be increased by either more nests per season or by more fledglings per nest. The only predictor that we found of fledglings per nest is related to the timing of the nest within the breeding season, and there don't appear to be any demographic predictors. But nests per season could be determined by several demographic factors, and as in many other species, varied reproductive behaviour might be associated with increased ARS. Fodies are highly social and can pair with multiple individuals within a season. So in this study, we set out to determine predictors of nests per season, including whether the size of an individual's social network impacts this aspect of breeding behaviour, and therefore whether it impacts on ARS. For these Fodies, we defined a social network as the number of individuals who the bird had paired with before who were still alive during the focal breeding season. The less said about working this out, the better, but it involved cross-checking between all of my massive data sets for well over 200 breeding individuals and a lot of swearing. We found that the size of social networks varied from 0 to 3 for females and 0 to 4 for males. And as we know that males can overlap nests with multiple females, we thought that there may well be a link between social networks and levels of polygyny that we see in this population. The data we used for these analyses consisted of 1,133 nesting attempts of 250 birds over 12 breeding seasons. Fodies use nest building as a social and pair bond activity, so only nests which had eggs laid in them and therefore represent a series breeding attempt were included for these analyses. This dataset was condensed into bird-level summaries of each breeding season for each bird, including the number of nests, the number of mates, the proportion of different mating systems used, and the total number of eggs, chicks and fledglings from that breeding season. The start and end dates of all nests are either known from direct field observations, or they are estimated from the developmental stage of the nest or the eggs or the chicks when the nest was found. Using this data, we set out to model the potential predictors of nests per season using GLMERs with the count of nests as the response variable. We took a two-stage approach, firstly looking at all birds and secondly at birds who remain monogamous. More on those in a moment. Within the first stage model for all birds, the predictors we included were the proportion of nests within that season that were non-monogamous, because overlapping nests may mean that the individual can make more attempts during the focal season. The size of the social network, because being familiar with more individuals may also be beneficial. The territory quality of the bird, which we measured as the distance of the territory from a feeding station, because access to supplemental feeding has been shown in other studies to increase ARS. The age of the bird, which correlates with experience, because both of these factors are known to influence breeding success. And the number of unpaired birds of the opposite sex, which is a simple measure of the potential mating pool available to these birds during each breeding season. The second stage of our modelling approach was to look at birds who are monogamous. Monogamy in birds can be defined in various ways, but here we define it as a bird who has no overlapping nests during the focal breeding season. So a monogamous bird can have nests with multiple different mates within that season, but all of these nests are discrete and have definable intervals between them. The data set for this second stage therefore only included these monogamous bird seasons, which was 100 of 145 total bird seasons included, and that's obviously a large proportion of this total. We modelled productivity for these individuals in largely the same way as before, but we left out any predictors relating to overlapping nests because obviously there weren't any. So that means the remaining predictors we had were social network size, territory quality, age, and the number of unpaired birds of the opposite sex. The results for males were that for all birds in the stage 1 analysis, territory, non-monogamous nests and unpaired individuals were all significant. So increasing territory quality means more nests per season, more non-monogamous nests means more nests per season, and an increasing number of unpaired individuals available also increases this metric for males. When the dataset was reduced to monogamous males only for stage 2, the only remaining significant predictor was territory quality. So again, a better quality territory means more nests per season. We found no evidence that social networks were important in either model for males. When looking at all females in stage 1, we found that overlapping nests with the same male was beneficial in increasing nests per season, and there was a marginal impact of improving territory quality on nests per season. When looking just at monogamous birds in stage 2, the impact of territory was significant, and suddenly social network size was extremely important for these birds. This result overall was somewhat unexpected. These models showed that for males and for non-monogamous females, having a larger social network doesn't increase nests per season. And this was unexpected because we had predicted a link between social networks and overlapping nests of various kinds. So just to be sure, we also tested whether a larger social network meant a higher proportion of non-monogamous nests, and it doesn't. So there doesn't seem to be any link between social networks and non-monogamy. In fact, a larger social network is only beneficial for monogamous females, and it doesn't increase nests per season for any other category of birds. This may suggest that there are multiple ways for birds to increase their ARS, and social networks may be a route to this for these females who don't have overlapping nests of any kind. So we decided to dig deeper into these birds which remain monogamous to find out how social networks are important. We know that the benefit of increasing social networks must apply to nest intervals because it's not linked to overlapping nests in any way, and the only other way to have more nests is to have them closer together. So we built models looking at the intervals between nests of these monogamous females to determine whether pairing with a familiar male from within her social network allows reduced intervals between her nesting attempts. The predictors we included in these models were age, as age and experience may impact on this metric, the breeding season, because seasonal conditions may influence aspects of mating behaviour, whether the male was in the female social network, and finally the number of fledglings from the previous nesting attempt, because a successful nesting attempt may require a longer recovery period. This modelling for monogamous females shows that nest intervals are significantly shorter when the bird nests with a familiar or previous partner. This plot shows that intervals for new partners range from 30 to 65 days, while a familiar partner they are much reduced at between 20 to 30 days. This model also showed that the number of fledglings produced by the previous nest increased the interval significantly, which suggests that the bird needs more time to recover condition after a successful nesting attempt. Now, other terms that we included were significant. Finally, we then completed the loop of models by confirming that birds who nest more with familiar partners do have significantly more nesting attempts than their peers. So the benefit of a larger social network for these females appears to be because they can repair with a familiar male more quickly than with a stranger, and this enables more nests per season than they would otherwise be able to attempt. In conclusion, we have shown that within this population, any route which allows birds to nest more per season is effective at increasing their annual reproductive success. Some individuals, particularly males, can overlap nests with multiple partners. But for females who remain monogamous, the size of the social network can determine how many nests they have, and this is because nesting with a familiar partner from within that social network reduces the interval between nests and therefore allows more nests within each season. This benefit of a pre-existing partner suggests the cost in time or energy of forming new pair bonds. Fodies use nest building as a pair bonding activity. In these analyses, we only include nests with eggs laid in them because these represent a serious nesting attempt. And so maybe some of the longer intervals that we see for nesting with a new partner are spent making practice attempts before a serious attempt is made. Thank you for listening to my talk. Thank you in particular to my supervisors Ken Norris, Deepa Senapathy and Malk Nicol. Also thanks to everyone at the Mauritian Wildlife Foundation, especially Vikash Tataya and Carl Jones, and to Amelie and the other members of the field team on Île aux Aigrettes while I was there. If you'd like to contact me, my details are here. Thank you.